everyone, and welcome to the Death by Adaptation podcast, a bi-weekly book club where we choose one classic book and compare it and contrast it against its cinematic adaptations. I'm your host, Nicola Grass, and I'm joined, as always, by the great Ewan Gledo. How are you doing, Ewan?
There's dust on my notebook. Sorry. Yeah, I'm doing good. I was just... The notes I've made for this podcast, I've got dust on my hand now. But apart from that, I'm doing good.
You did homework this time around. We're not coming unprepared.
I did 1 to 3. I did 6 lines of homework for this book and film podcast, which is 6 more lines than I've ever done for any other episode I've ever recorded for anything with Clapper. So
well, that's because this is an important episode, you know? It's Valentine's Day or close to it when it's coming out. And we're talking about the 50 Shades trilogy. And we couldn't do this just the two of us alone. So today we're joined by the host of ClapperCast, deputy editor-in-chief of Clapper, the Carson Timar himself. How are you, Carson? It's been a while. So good to see you again.
I'm doing great. I am genuinely honored and excited to be here on Death by Adaptation, one of my favorite podcasts, dare I say. Very, very excited. It says something about my mental state that I'm here, that this is the episode I said yes to. But regardless, here I am.
There was a lot of excitement. It's like, you're doing 50 Shades, just sign me right up.
Nick mentioned it when we were recording like Uncut Gems or something, let's say. Yes. And like by the time the recording stopped, I had the trilogy on the way to the home. So like I jumped on this for some reason. I don't know why, but here I am.
It's sixth sense. It's just something you feel inside yourself sometimes, and you have to go with it. You have to go with the flow. So let's just dive right in. 50 Shades.
It's a non-disclosure agreement. It means that you cannot discuss anything about us with anyone. I'm afraid my lawyer insists on it.
I'd never talk to anyone about us anyway. Are you gonna make love to me now?
Two things. First, I don't make love. I fuck. Hard.
And the second thing?
Come. It's just beyond this door.
What is?
My playroom.
Like your Xbox and stuff?
And the history of these novels is insane. So first of all, the author, E.L. James, real name Erica Mitchell, she was just a mom. She was doing a bunch of other things, working, but during her spare time, like she loved reading. She loved reading, and she loved the Twilight books. She was like, you know what? This is actually sparking something inside of me. The need to write about these stories in my own way. And so she ended up writing fan fiction, like proper Twilight fan fiction, titled Master of the Universe. She published it on some weird website with Snow Queen's Ice Dragon as a username. People on the website were like, this is a bit racy, this sex story between Bella and Edward. You're pushing it. So she dropped it, and she basically self-published 50 Shades of Grey, 50 Shades Darker, and 50 Shades Freed. And the rest is history, because then a super small publishing company picked those books up. They ended up releasing them primarily on digital. And word of mouth, people calling this mommy porn because, it's only like 30-plus-year-old mothers were reading this. It became a proper success and a proper event. And I even remember it when it came out. Like, everyone was talking about it. Everyone was reading it. And the most interesting thing is that apparently they said that this book's success was due to the advent of digital tablets, of like Kindles and stuff, because if you're on the subway and you're on buses reading 50 Shades of Grey, people are going to look at you the wrong way. But if you're reading it on a tablet, like, who knows what you're reading there? It could be the nastiest things. You could be reading the Bible. Who knows? And so it's like we have this trilogy of erotic romance, and I honestly want to know what both of you think about the love story that's so tender, so passionate, with BDSM sex into it. This relationship between Anastasia Steele and Christian Grey. So, Carson, I want to hear your thoughts first, as our esteemed guest, the most excited person about this.
So I'm an English major. So I regularly read novels considered to be some of the best of all time, the most interesting works of all time. But in that, I have not been able to read for myself for a very long time. And I will say 50 Shades of Grey kind of rekindled my love for reading. I love these books. It's safe to say. And now, are they good? Are they good? Probably not. I'm not going to say they're nothing. They're completely hollow, because there is some stuff. But like, I think these books are so much fun that, like, as soon as I picked it up, not because like, oh, it's so hot or it's so deep, but like, it is just fun. These books are fun to read. They often know that they're being terrible, and they just embrace it in this really earnest way that, like, I love. I love that I know this is like a fanfic. I love that I know it's a Twilight fanfic, and I just had a lot of fun with it, to the point where, like, I think officially I can call myself a 50 Shades stan. I'm excited. I love this. I might just read the next book, like, off podcast. I had so much fun with these. So I don't know. Say what you want about me, but call me a 50 Shades stan, because here I am.
Are you gonna start reading like Grey and
I'm thinking about it.
Oh, man. I did come very close to saying maybe I'll give it a shot for the first one, but then they're so long. They're even longer than this one. So I was like, okay.
Yeah, actuality probably not, but I mean,
yeah.
In theory, I'm open to it.
Yeah. No judgments here. No judgments. Yuan, you're squirming with excitement. I can see. What did you think of 50 Shades of Grey? I think this is the only one you managed to read, right?
Yeah. So my time these days is quite limited to, working two jobs on top of each other, and then also trying to read essentially smut. I don't have time. Can't read it on the train to and from work, because I work with students, and I feel like that sets a bad image. So I got through the first one. I cracked through it in like 5 days, and it was agony. But as Carson said, there is something to it. It's so fucking stupid. It's so dumb. I'm sure we'll get into the details of it all, but like, just as a general groundworks, I'd like to disagree with your use of the word love earlier then, Nick, because this is not love. This is like just two degenerates smacking into each other for like 700 pages, just clapping away, doing nothing, and they do nothing for the whole book, and it's gorgeous, it's beautiful, it's fantastic. That is what a real relationship should be like. I think the core concept of it, I mean, it's like, we've seen it in movies, we've seen it in music, we've seen it in all art, is that sex sells, and it's no wonder that 50 Shades of Grey sort of catapulted into, like, from early works of Twilight fan fiction to it like, love it or hate it, it's a strange trendsetter, because you look at stuff like After, which was Harry Styles fan fiction, that got straight to Netflix, and I'm more interested in sort of the story around the conception of 50 Shades of Grey than the actual story of 50 Shades of Grey, because the story for 50 Shades of Grey is just mummy porn, as you said, Nick. It's it caters to a certain category, and I remember so the BBC used to do Newsnight. For the life of me, I don't know if they still do it. But they had E.L. James appear on that show and got a very elderly, well-respected news reporter to read quotes from the book and ask her about what it means, and sort of, he's just listing. So we'll get to it in a bit, but the actual contract where it like lists, what Anastasia will and will not do, he reads that out, and she's like, "Sorry, what did you say? Can you repeat that?" And he lists it out again, and it's heartbreaking. It's so good, but I think, as an act of writing, it's a crime. But as a cultural pioneer, it's so strange. It's movingly brilliant as to how much 50 Shades of Grey has done for modern culture. Like, I mean that genuinely. I think it's done so much to shape the past, 10 years of how audiences consume sort of sexually driven content. It's insane. Yeah. And we've got E.L. James both to thank and mock for that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting that this is a Twilight fanfic, because we were talking about kind of the fall of the teen genre, let's say. And I think a lot of that can be contributed to Twilight, just with films thinking they can give the bare minimum because, and yes, I like the first Twilight film, a lot of the Twilight films are seen at least in the light of just being paint by numbers, just bad, giving the most limited. In a lot of ways, I think 50 Shades acts very similarly for a very different genre, for, as you mentioned, the sexy kind of light softcore porn genre, maybe more adult genre that's also kind of creeping into the teen genre, which is kind of strange. But I think it's interesting that this is directly based on Twilight, but had a very similar effect to another genre. That's a very interesting comparison, I would say.
Yeah, I my feelings about it, I have to say, like 50 Shades of Grey, I have to agree with Carson. This was fun. And it's not fun. Like, this has. I had a lot of prejudice going into it based on what other people said about having read it. It was like, it's ridiculous, it's stupid. I was like, oh man, this is going to be hard to read. Like, they say it's poorly written and whatnot. And of course, if you take it as fan fiction, like, it's all right. I've read way worse fan fiction, even though I've not read it that much of it. I'm not an expert in any sense. But I was reading it and I thought, this is just really not just fun, but this is kind of funny. Like, this is a sense of humor about it. And one of the funniest things about the entire trilogy as a whole is just Anastasia is narrating everything like it's primarily in first person, and she talks about her inner goddess, and she has like these conversations with her horny side, pretty much, and they're ridiculous, but it kind of works, and I can see E.L. James just kind of like sitting down at the typewriter and just kind of like laughing with herself and just going back to her husband and kind of like, oh, I wrote this dumb shit. It was like, yeah, sure, fine. And she looks like a very nice lady. Like, I was looking up interviews with her, I was like she didn't really want all of this success in a weird way. And I cannot blame her, and everyone's kind of like, ooh, this is so racy and it's pushing boundaries, when really it's not. And that's actually a question that I have for both of you that I still cannot find an answer to. It's just, why, like, erotica has been around for centuries, proper centuries. Like, there's nothing new about that. Why did this book break into the mainstream compared to others? What do you think? It's not easy. I'm struggling. I'm like, why? Is it the Twilight connection? Like, the similarities between the two narratives? Is it that it's explicit without being vulgar about it? Without actually being too extreme? I don't know.
I think for me, and obviously, I think the misconception is that 50 Shades of Grey is nothing but sort of smut and erotica and sex. I'm surprised at how little there is in the first book. A lot of it is the actual back and forth between the two characters rather than the act of itself. It's surprisingly smart in how it dictates that, and it's. I do have sympathy for E.L. James, who was essentially... Nick, I don't know how much fan fiction's been written on typewriters, but I like to think quite a lot. But the not the tenacity of it, but the actual act of writing this is sort of as just a hobby, as sort of just something that James was passionate about, and she's managed to profit off of it. That's the dream, really, isn't it? I mean, throughout the first book, you get a sense that she's not really... she's not intentionally writing these very stereotypical stubborn characters. It's not intentional. Sorry, it is intentional. It's the wealthy businessman meets the nervous. That's every plot from the 1980s, and I do think there's a self-awareness to 50 Shades of Grey. I don't think it overcomes the sort of conception that... I don't know. I might just be stubborn where it's like, bad films for me are really easy to get into because you're only spending like an hour and a half, 2 hours with it. A book is really different. Like, I don't have the brain cells left to process a book of this quality anymore. Like, I don't have time. I read Richard E. Grant's book By Design, and that was shit. At least 50 Shades of Grey was funny, but reading that book was like, I'm sat here, and the minutes of my very, life is not forever, and I'm sat here reading a book that I'm not enjoying. And it's like, yeah, this isn't good. There's nothing to this. But for 50 Shades of Grey, there's so much to it. And it's like, I'd go as far to say that it's not really erotica. I don't think it is. I think it toys with the ideas of it. I think it plays around with the perceptions of it. And it gets it so wrong that it's like, it doesn't really... it appeals to the middle-class women who are like, oh, that sounds a bit fruity and a bit naughty, but wouldn't actually engage with it, because neither does E.L. James. These characters don't really like push for it. There's not pages and pages of filth. It's actually more the implication of the impact of it, and it's surprisingly smart in that, and I do like that about the book. I mean, I didn't enjoy reading it. I thought it was hilarious. But when I think of the great books that I've read, like All the President's Men or Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, I think 50 Shades of Grey is just below those. I think
just
that's where
a little
I'd put
bit,
it.
yeah.
Yeah, just a smidge below.
I mean, I think the film, the books the thing about it is, like, number one, you can feel her passion, which you often do with fanfics. I'll give the fan fiction genre one thing: you can feel that the author genuinely cares about what they're writing. I think you have the perfect level of like risky sex where, we're getting into some kinky stuff without ever actually getting that deep into kinky stuff. I mean, it is almost humorous in the first one when she's like, I want to see how bad it can be, and then it's like nothing. Like this sex is, I mean, as you mentioned, it's never vulgar. It's never Benedetta. It's never, going out and trying to be this gross or trying to be this like over the top thing. It's very held back to the point where I can see why white women would be like, oh, this is different from what I do, but it's not crazy enough to where I'm going to feel gross from it at all. And also I just think the characters, like, as much as everyone likes to shit on 50 Shades, and like, yes, is the writing quality good? No, but like, at least in the first two books, I do think there's enough of character development, character arcs, to where like there's enough thematic depth to where it's not just a completely hollow fan fiction experience, right? I think there is at least some level of something there that is enough for people to feel like there's something rewarding from it past just sexual gratification.
Yeah, the narrative is, I take, and in terms of like eroticism, this has a long build up to their first sexual encounter, which does make it quite interesting and quite exciting in its own way. And I also have to think, now that we're talking about it, just kind of popped into my head. One of the reasons that I think maybe this worked is, like you mentioned, Carson, just the fact that it never, like, everyone was pushing the BDSM side of things, but in all three books, like, the maximum extent is kind of like, oh, you get tied up and spanked, and that's it. It's like, sure, it's kind of like, oh man, like, I can try that. I can try that without actually hurting myself too much. It's not too scary. And one element that I think is, I don't know, some people would say problematic, but it's, I don't know, it is what it is. Um, Christian Grey is painted as this tragic figure whose kinks are not really all that good. It's kind of like there's a limit to what's good in your kinks. And like, some slaps and tying up, it's fine. But some of the weirder things, we're never going to do that. It's never going to happen in any pages of the book. Actually, the innocence and love of Anastasia is going to change him. It's going to make him a brand new man, and she can save this poor tortured soul from being damned to hell. I think there's kind of that angle as well does appeal to people, because it's always the thing, the savior complex. Like, oh, I don't want to be with the nice guy. I want to be with the like super weird, mysterious kind of a serial killer type vibes man that I can actually make good again, because there's something good inside of him deep down. That type of obsession is very much present in this entire trilogy, like constantly. But even like now moving to the other two books, which honestly, you and like we'll talk about the films in a bit, but the story.
That's okay. I'm happy to be a passive bystander for the rest of this discussion.
It's like the movies, all with more sex and more explicit sex, but just it's basically the same shit. And one of the things that's kind of frustrating is that I do like how the first novel ends with Anna just being kind of like, you know what, like, peace out, like, this is not for me, this is not a good relationship, bye, Christian, and she just leaves. And I thought, wow, bold ending. Oh wait, we got two more books, and the second book is like takes place 2 days after the first one, and they're ready to get back together again. Whoops. Okay, just kind of like, oh, that's okay, and they start having sex, and then they go to the ball, and just the entire relationship becomes very weird. Where I do kind of understand why some people, a majority of people, don't like it, primarily because Christian Grey is an interesting character up to a point. There is a sense of uh, like misery porn of like, oh, he has trauma and everything bad had happened to him, and he was abused as a child by this lady with sexual advances to him. It's very messed up. They treat it
He
as
also
messed
watched
up.
Riddick, so
Yes, he loves Riddick as a
that
Riddick poster
was
in the movie. Why? Oh, anyway, just there's this whole side to him, and what I really didn't really like is that a lot of the times he's very possessive, he's very controlling. That's a constant running theme. Anastasia wants to be her own person, she wants to be free, and Christians is like, no, I'm controlling you. You just shut up, you do what I tell you, and that's it. And 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 that's what's kind of frustrating, is that E.L. James paints it as Anastasia is doing the right thing by rebelling against him, but every single time that she does, something bad happens to her. In the third book, she's like, I'm going out with my friends. Like, I cannot stay inside this mansion just all on by myself. Just fuck you, Christian. I'm going out with my friend. She goes out and she's almost kidnapped by the fucking freaking weirdo dude from the second book. And it justifies him, because it's like, see, he told you to not go out, he did the right thing. Oh well, you know what the solution is? He's just going to spend more money, because that's all what he does, is just spending money. He has $1 bajillion just constantly throwing out at every problem. It's like, oh, let's just go to Malibu, and let's just go to Russia, and let's just go to SpaceX, just in space. We can be with friends in space. I can afford it, why not? That's always, it's constantly happening. And that's what actually made me appreciate the two books, the sequels, Darker and Freed, a bit less than the first one, because it was kind of like, they're a bit too long. It does feel like it's indulging a bit too much in the sex of it all, in the erotica side of things, where it's kind of like every 20 to 30 pages you're just stopping for a quick sex scene. Fair enough, I mean, that's what people are reading this for. It's not really for the plot per se. But then it has these elements where I'm kind of like, I mean, it is still a fantasy, and I can see the appeal of it. But I don't know. I don't know how you guys feel about this.
I feel like E.L. James is kind of the real world version of Paul Sheldon from Misery. She wrote a classic. She wrote a modern classic, and it shot out of fame. And then I imagine that she's been kidnapped and been told you must write more. And now she's like 6 books into a series that had maybe half a story based on Twilight, and is like, oh my god, I'm never going to write the actual work I wanted to. For all we know, she could be the next like Joan Didion, and we'll never know, because she's stuck writing 50 Shades stories because middle-aged women from across the globe are saying, we want more of this, we want more of this, otherwise she's going to get trapped in a snowstorm. Now, there are ups and downs to that. The real up is that you have a perplexing, fan fiction that has sort of poorly inspired a lot of people that think they'll be able to repeat this success, which I find scary. But
Yeah.
on the flip side of that, you have a real, there's a genuine passion here. There is a genuine. I can't knock James for that. I cannot knock the desire to write a book. She has done it. I have not. That's as simple as that. And she has actually written something that she's passionate about, and that shows in sort of the characterizations of Christian Grey and Anastasia Steele. It shows in, like you said, Nick. It's like the actual act of degeneracy that are sort of relied on in 50 Shades of Grey. They're not actually there. Really, they're on lists and they're thrown into email chains. They're not actually described beyond the definition. And I find that is possibly the smartest thing James does, because I mean, I finished 50 Shades of Grey, and my immediate sort of knee-jerk reaction was, well, that is just, it's a moral. It's a really horrible relationship that she's sort of painting as this broad picture of what people should accept. And then you think about it a little bit, and it's actually quite the opposite. It's, these people are caricatures with bits of personality laced in, and James is really saying, what the fuck are these people doing? Why are they doing this? And I think she navigates that quite smartly. Now, obviously, the issue with sequels is that you've then got to develop these characters whose personalities are based very much around the fact that Christine Grey owns a helicopter and Anastasia Steele does not. You've got to do 2 more books on top of that. And then when you've run out of ideas for that and you've settled them down and then married with kids, you then just go, But what about if it was from the perspective of the other character, which is genius? The amount of money you can make from doing that. Imagine Harry Potter, but from the perspective of like all the ensemble.
No. Don't say it.
Trillions,
Don't,
trillions. The
no,
Potterheads would go mad. Let's go Slytherin, etc.
no.
You know, that sort of thing. Fantastic, amazing. And I think
It's all
E.L.
from
James is
Draco's
a real.
perspective.
I want Harry Potter from Buckbeak's perspective, and that's final.
JK, this is how you get redeemed. Give us all 8.
We know you're listening.
It's a hero arc. But I think what James has done, especially with the first book, because I didn't have the brain power. I mean, credit to you two for reading all 3 of them. I'm
willingly.
Unfortunately, you people get to read. I have to write about it for newspapers, so it's kind of the trade-offs there. I know all about that sort of nonsense, but I think she's essentially hit the dream of making a book that she's interested in, continuing it, and getting a lot of money for it. And I respect the hustle more than anything else. I think, as just to get back on point, my real issue is with sort of not with the idea that caricatures can't be interesting, but that there is no active attempt to make the characters around Christian Grey and Anastasia still very interesting. For the life of me, cannot remember any of the names, and I'm too far into this speech to tab out and Google them. So there is one character whose name I can't remember, but he's kind of like in the second film, he's the guy that is running the art gallery. I couldn't give a shit about him, and I find that in the book as well, it's like Anna's mother. I don't care. I just for all the encounters and for all the depth that they give the actual core relationship and the dynamic between the two of them, I don't quite get it. I don't quite see why they have to sort of be there. Because I mean, it makes sense. It makes sense. It's like, oh, Christian Grey, here's my mother, and it's like just a throwaway scene. The rest is like, oh well, I'll leave you two to it. And it's like that's it.
Yeah, I want to hear Carson's thoughts on this, but I'll just briefly say this: as a Twilight fan fiction, this does not have nearly as many memorable characters as Twilight does. Especially if you think about it, there's one of the clearer parallels is when Christian introduces Anastasia to her family, to his family, and they're just, I don't know, just white loaves of bread. Like, they have no person. I don't care about anyone. Even the little sister is supposed to be cute and all. I don't care about her at all. Even when she gets kidnapped in the first movie, I forget she's there every single time. Yeah, the sister. Yeah, okay, fine. Meanwhile, if you take like Twilight, they have personality. They have different powers. They look cool in the movies. I haven't read the books, but whatever. Just at least you remember them. I think even watched it, like, I don't remember a single person. I don't even remember the actors. Oh no, Marsha Gay Arden, I think, is in the movie, right? So weird. Anyway, Carson, your thoughts on this? Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not as consistent as Twilight when it comes to giving iconic moments and stuff. Really, I think the best part is just if you're watching the movies, like some of the sex scenes towards the second and third book, like are like just the most iconic moments, but I think that says something about how uniconic the rest of it is. I think the second book, 50 Shades Darker, she tries to give Grey an arc, and she tries to give Grey character. Like, she really tries to find a nuance with Grey character to where, like, book 1 would be Anastasia's, book 2 would be Grey's. But then at the third one, I don't know if anyone's seen the hit Netflix show 13 Reasons Why, but it starts off with a season 1 that is like, okay, I see what we're doing. It's not good, but I see what we're doing. Number 2, it's like, okay, it's way kind of out there, but I still see what we're doing. The third one just loses the plot. I mean, the third one, clearly she has no idea what she's doing. She has no, like, I really sound like a horrible, like, white mother complaining to her book club. Clearly she had no idea what she was doing. She took my characters and ruined them. But no, but like, it becomes like a mystery. It becomes like there's someone stalking them, a thriller with like guns and shit. And it's like, what the fuck are we doing? So the third one I think is all around pretty terrible. But at least in the second one, where the execution's not nearly as solid as the first, and like I wish the first was just kind of it, because I think the ending is a great ending for the story, considering how toxic it is. I at least see what she's trying to do with Christian, and I don't hate it, I guess I'll say. Like, I do appreciate the effort she's putting in there.
Yeah, she tries to infuse this thriller elements in the last two books that are barely developed. It's crazy. So in the second book, you have two thriller side plots. Let's say you have Jack whatever, like the boss of Anastasia. He starts working at a publishing firm. He's a massive creep. He sexually assaults her, or tries to at least. She runs away. She's like, Christian, oh my god, you bought this entire firm. Just do something about this. He fires the guy. He gets like problems and stuff. His life is ruined. He cannot work again, and so he decides to. He holds a grudge and he wants revenge. And one of the most ridiculous parts of just this entire story is that somehow he sabotages Christian's helicopter to almost crash hundreds of miles from where he's at. Everyone hears the news on the TV and it's like, oh my god, no, Christian, not be that. Oh my god, oh no, wait, it's just entering the room. It's fine. Like no one called them to tell them it was okay. No, it just walks into the room. Okay, this is like in the second book. This is crap. But anyway, and then you have this weird, surprisingly minor element that I thought was going to be actually much bigger than it is, of a previous submissive and girlfriend of Christian who comes back to kind of haunt him and to get back together with him because she got married, she had some problems with the husband, and she just comes back to him. She's lost her mind. And there's this climactic scene that's like halfway through the book as well, kind of shocked me. Like the structure is all over the place. This scene halfway through the book where she enters the apartment and Christian and Anastasia are sleeping and she points a gun at her. She's like, I want to be in your place again, blah, blah, blah. And Christian is like, oh, Anna, stop there. And the girl that whose name I forgot just he talks to her, calms her down, whatever. And there's this, like, Anastasia is kind of like, oh my god, in that moment I knew I can never change him because he has to be controlling and I could see the passion in his eyes. And she like runs away crying and stuff. I was like, what's happening here? What is this? Everything's fine. Nothing really happened. And then they get back together again because he's like, no, Anastasia, I love you. Just this constant back and forth. And I'm thinking, okay, this feels like it's padding out the length of the novel. And it's a long novel. And I'm like, okay, what's left? The sex scenes, like, okay, just remove the sex scenes. What's left? It's like, they get back together and he proposes, and that's it. You're like, oh, okay, good. I think if this were a duology, it could have been better, probably. I think if you didn't try to add this thriller element, it would have been much better and much shorter as well. But then, yeah, Carson, I agree. Like, in the first book, it just loses its mind. There's, like, car chases. There's the most convoluted kidnapping plan I've ever read. It's like, what's... Okay, so the guy from the firm is back again. He gets arrested, but then he gets paid, like, the bail is paid, and he goes out and kidnaps Christian's sister to ruin Anna's relationship with Christian, and she's already pregnant, and so the relationship is a bit strained because Christian doesn't want to become a father. And then she has to get money, and she goes to the bank, and she has to leave the phone, but she takes the bank teller's phone, and she has the money, and she gets in the car, and there's the gun, and there's the other lady, and there's the gun. And Anna's thinking, I don't know what's happening anymore. I'm just getting a headache in that moment. Like, I don't know what am I reading. It's a lot. And in that moment, like, I got to that part and I thought, you kind of dodged the bullet by not reading this one. I was like, yeah, you read the best one. Which
I read the best one, subsequently thought, I'm not reading any more of this, and instead read All the President's Men, which I think, in hindsight, was a good idea.
Probably.
I think, for me, because the initial thought for me was like, it's especially when it comes to the film. I think the film has no sort of protection from, E.L. James was writing fan fiction, fair enough. She's gotten a lot of money for it. Fantastic work. Nice job. But as the film doesn't have that protection. The film is very much a very for-profit, we're going to capitalize on 50 Shades of Grey releasing type of thing. It's, it's like, it's the 50 Shades of Grey is like for the 50-year-olds in the audience. It's, there's no rhyme or reason to it. It's just 50-year-old women shouting and screaming in cinemas going, yeah, kiss, 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 and over, and it's just like, trying to respond to that on a level that isn't mockery is really difficult. So I do see why 50 Shades of Grey gets a really bad reputation. I mean, I think, as we've discussed here, I don't think the book deserves it too much, but the films without question do. And I watched the first one in January, just after I'd finished reading the book, and it fatigued me so much that I had to wait until February to. I finished watching the second one yesterday, the third one. Sorry, I forgot how many there are, and I'm scared that they'll do another trilogy from Christian Grey's perspective.
I doubt it.
But there's so many strange choices with the film that aren't just hilarious, but they actually like redefine what few good things there were about the book. They actually changed the sort of, not the innocence, because there's certainly nothing innocent about it, but the actual the actual act of E.L. James mentioning this stuff rather than showcasing it. It was very much monkey see, monkey do for the films, and it's rather telling that the film is selling sex and nothing but that, while E.L. James was smart enough to essentially caricaturize everything about it. And I know we'll get onto this later, but I'm still just kind of perplexed that James Foley directed both of the sequels.
Yeah.
I mean, Glengarry Glen Ross is one of my favourite movies. And I imagine he'll have a happy, healthy early retirement. But I don't know what's going on there, but it's rather telling that the last two films he worked on were 50 Shades Freed and 50 Shades Darker. Because they're awful. All three of the films are awful, but those two really take the cake and sort of fucking run with it and try and fuck it. It's horrible. It's so bad. I mean, especially the third one, where it's like, I feel like James Foley's kind of just fallen either into self-parody or is so tired of himself that he tries to make a thriller and fails. He's channeling his inner David Mamet, thinking, I'm on Glengarry Glen Ross, I'm on Glengarry Glen Ross, and he's just trying, he's fucking throwing everything at the screen, because the films can boil down, where at least the books had sort of a back and forth, it was like, ooh, a little bit of scintillating stuff, it was quite nice, it was quite funny, it's quite cool. The films, all three of them, just boil down to Christian Grey takes a helicopter with Anastasia Steele to a fancy restaurant. They can barely get through the cheese board until one of them takes their knickers off and they have to go straight back to their room. That's it for 3 films. That's 6 hours that I will not get back. That's 6 hours I could have been learning my guitar, which I haven't picked up in 3 years.
That's one way to segue into the movie talk. Let's talk about these movies, which basically the books were a massive success. Everyone ended up loving them, made so much money that, of course, Hollywood wanted to get a bite of the cake, just a nice big massive slice.
They won Pulitzer Awards, these books, or at least they would if the Pulitzers weren't a sham. I'd like to take that back. I'd like a Pulitzer, please.
E.L. James got robbed. But anyway, like they ended up, they were a hot item in those days. In like 2013, 2014, they were starting to move around like, oh, who's going to direct this? Who's going to star in it? And I just want to say, like, I have to read some of the people they were thinking of casting. So, like, for Christian Grey, they thought Ryan Gosling, Theo James, Alexander Skarsgård, Charlie Hunnam, Scott Eastwood, Luke Bracey, just a bit of
DiCaprio would be good. That'd be my vote.
Leonardo DiCaprio they probably approached him and was like, nah. And then for Anastasia, you have people like Felicity Jones, Alicia Vikander, Elizabeth Olsen, Shailene Woodley, Imogen Poots. I can see those actresses more in the role rather than all the other guys, because I imagine Charlie Hunnam in this role. So, I don't know. Anyway, but they ended up casting relatively unknown back then, Dakota Johnson and Jamie Dornan, who had both done primarily TV work and side roles in other movies. Nothing too big to the point that you could say, oh, they're mainstream stars. Even though, Dakota Johnson, she's a child of Hollywood royalty, of both Don Johnson and Melanie Griffith. But the movie was directed, of all people, by Sam Taylor Johnson, who most people know as the wife of Aaron Taylor Johnson. We're not going to talk about that. There's a whole can of worms we're going to avoid. But the movie came out. It had surprisingly good talent behind the camera as well, like the editors and cinematography, the music. I think it's from Danny Elfman of all people. Just so weird, so weird. And Coates did some of the editing. How, I don't know. The movie came out massive success, of course, but E.L. James wasn't actually a fan of it, and she managed to have enough power to boot out the director and get someone else to finish up the trilogy. And that's where our boy James Foley comes in, who made the last two movies. And I'll just say my 2 cents about the first movie, at least, is just I liked it less than the book, because in my opinion this is less of a sense of humor about it. Takes itself way too seriously. Um, I I I've grown to like Jamie Dornan and Dakota Johnson a lot in other movies, like Suspiria. You have your Belfast and the Fall. I think he did the TV show The Fall, which is kind of alright.
Trolls World Tour.
Yes, Barb and Star. Just so
Wild
some
Mountain
stuff.
Time.
Well, Wild Mountain Time, probably the most underrated film.
It's
That's-
unbelievable.
No.
Oh man.
That's
It's
just
a committed-
Irish 50 Shades of Grey.
It's better, in some ways. He's very committed in the role. I did believe he was a bumblebee, but anyway, just I'm watching.
I'm a swan.
We should do that for Uncut Gems one day, because I want to put Jakub through the ringer.
Not until we do Postal.
We can do a double feature of just good stuff, of good pain and bad pain.
Where's my Uwe Boll month on Uncut Gems?
We have to plan it.
I did not interview the man for nothing.
But anyway, I was watching it. I was bored. I'll just be honest. I was kind of bored. It's surprisingly faithful in the dialogue as well. Most of the lines that people were saying, "Oh, this movie is so cringe," like they're all taken from the book, like 50 Shades of Fucked Up, asking if he was gay at the interview. Let's say, "This is my playroom." Oh, like we have your Xbox and stuff. It's like, oh my god, It's not played for laughs though. In the book, it's funny. In the film, it's not. It was kind of like. So I'm kind of glad they changed director, But how did you guys feel about the first book? The first film? Whatever. Carson, give me your thoughts.
So inherently the hardest type of book to adapt onto film is one that takes place largely in the character's mind, because you can't express that. And there are some movies that work around it, such as Call Me By Your Name, but typically those are the hardest ones to fully embrace what the characters are feeling and express that through visuals, because you can't just hear their constant dialogue in their own heads. I was incredibly worried about this film going into it, and in the first bit you get the interview scene, which I think is an iconic moment in the book, but it just sterilizes that. You move so quickly through it. I was like, oh god, this is gonna be shit. And up until he comes to the bar, I was like, okay, this is shit. But then I was like, well, it's not great, but maybe it's good. It's not terrible. I will say Dakota Johnson and Jamie Dornan have I think the opposite of chemistry. I don't know what exactly happened between them, but they have just not an ounce of just even wanting to be there acting with each other, at least in this film. But then past that, I think the one place that weirdly, in every single way, the book is better than the movie, except for one, which is the sex scenes, which is weird to say, but the ability to create an aesthetic and the lighting and the editing to the soundtracks, which, by the way, the soundtracks for all of these, I don't know how they got this A level of soundtracks, but they did. But there are some scenes where it's not ever sexy, to be very clear, but there are some scenes where it's okay, this is fucking great, isn't it? I think it's in book 2, they pull out the spreader and he fucking flips her, and it was okay, wait a minute, this is fun.
That's a stunt. It's Tom Cruise levels of dangerous.
Yeah, but again, that's the point where you're not really so needing to be in her head to make it work. It's just supposed to be a vibe, a sexual vibe. So it makes sense that would work. The rest of the adaptations, I don't think the movies are terrible. I give the first one 3.5 stars. Don't get me wrong, but I think they're definitely a step down from the book, and inherently, I think as an adaptation, it's going to be flawed.
Yeah. Johan?
Yeah, I agree. Flawed is the word I'd use to describe the adaptation. Because in the book, it at least gets to play with the back and forth. And it does so nicely at points, especially in the emails when he buys her the MacBook, and it's kind of the back and forth, the email stuff. I think is quite smart because it's adapting at something that wasn't new at the time, but sort of the technology boom. It was like quite smart to include in the film. It's just Stockholm syndrome with extra steps. It's like it's so simplistic, and it really takes the not the bite out of it, but the sort of the charm isn't the right word. The the sort of
Fun?
the fun, yeah, the fun of it, and it's because as much as I sort of disagree with the implications and sort of the overall approach that E.L. James took BDSM and sort of how it works, I think the films are just have to mount the we've got to sell sex on screen. That's because that's the only route they can go down. There is no way, like Carson said, of getting into a character's mind on screen. That's just frankly, it's very difficult. I can only think of one example, and it's what me and Nick will be talking about in a few months with filth. Um, but speaking of filth, this is filth, and it is that on screen. It's just nothing more. Because where you had caricatures and you had sort of like a nice little jab of mockery from James's prose, in the book it's taken at face value, and I think that's a lot of people that read the book or a lot of people that know of 50 Shades of Grey will also take it at face value. So the film really should work for them. What happens is, again, what Carson said, there is not an ounce of passion or chemistry or even likability between Dakota Johnson and Jamie Dornan. And I think it's, we can mock them for appearing in this trilogy as much as we like. It definitely kickstarted their careers to that next level. Despite it being so shit, the films did that well that they were accelerated tenfold. And you look at the recent works they've done. Dakota Johnson appearing in The Lost Daughter, and then Jamie Dornan with Belfast. We could argue that 50 Shades of Grey certainly helped. What doesn't help is sort of again the issue of the book, the characters that surround them. Like Rita Ora, who's cast for some reason, and then they refuse to let her work on the soundtrack, which is a smart move. But like Jennifer Eel and Eloise Mumford, they're just
wasted Jennifer Eel.
Wasted Jennifer Eel.
She's always on the phone. She's always on the phone. Every scene, she's kind of like, "Oh yeah, Anastasia, I'm here. I get my paycheck. Bye."
And I don't want to write the 50 Shades of Grey trilogy of films off as paycheck movies, because I don't think they are for some people. Mr. Foley, we have other, who knows. But I do think genuinely there is a desire to capture what made the book so popular, not just to make a financial play on it, but also to sort of understand it a bit better. They don't come close, but at least they tried, God bless them. I think the one thing I always take away from Sam Taylor Johnson's work is that if it doesn't have Aaron Taylor Johnson in it, probably not worth watching. Million Little Pieces was alright. 50 Shades of Grey, not so much.
No boy.
But I think it's interesting. It's like you mentioned there, Carson, that E.L. James actually essentially got rid of the director, as if that was the problem. The problem is the overall adaptation and what it was aiming for and who it was projected to, rather than the. I mean, let's be fair. These three films are very flat, like visually, and it's just you can make all sorts of comparisons between the white opening credits of the second film and the implications of purity. But there's no point, because there's no actual rhyme or reason to it. And to project that idea onto the work in that sequel.
It's trying to be deep. It's trying to give you like thoughtful direction.
I don't think it's trying to be deep or trying to make any commentary on anything. I just think anything that it does actively commentate on is happenstance. I think it's an accident. I can never escape with the book. I can escape the idea that it was just trying to peddle sex, but the films, I can't escape that. I very much think the books are at least dignified in their approach to it. The films just aren't. The films are pairing up attractive people and bringing out what essentially James was actively leaving out of the books. But it's a strange one. It's a real strange one. It's flawed. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I was watching it, and I thought, like, even listening to both of you talk about these movies, the main problem for me is that they are studio pictures. Like, this is produced by freaking Focus Pictures and Universal as well. And it's like two of the biggest studios you can have in the US. This needed to be dirty. This needed to be nasty. Like, I'm not big into fan fiction, but I've seen quite a few, like, let's say, racy movies from like 70s and 80s. You have directors like Tinto Brass. You have films like in the not in the Mouth of Madness. Jesus, that's another type of movie. In the realm of the senses. Um, by Oshima. You have like those, like, I was Jesus Franco from Spain. I started watching Vampiros Lesbos the other day, which is from 1971. Like, all those movies that are very erotic with explicit scenes of sex, but they have some great things to say, first of all, but they're just well shot, well made. You can actually feel the chemistry with the actors, and it does also indulge in the eroticism of it all in a very good way, I'd even say. And I'm watching this movie, and you said it best, Carson. It's just kind of like, those two are unwatchable together in the first film, especially. It's just kind of like, it feels like they were both on board up until the moment they yelled action for the first time, and they were like, "Fuck, why did we say yes to this project?" It's like, it's like 5 stages of grief that even Kristen Stewart and Robert Pattinson went through with the Twilight films, only in the span of one movie rather than in like 2 or 3 films to realize they weren't actually doing that much good in them, which is unfortunate. Also, massive shame on the movie producers or whoever said that Jamie Dornan had to shave his beard in the first film. No, babyface Jamie Dornan. No, no sexy at all. Just get him out of my face. And that's when the second movies get better, because he comes in, he has a stubble. I'm like, yeah, it's already improvement here. They're improving like good sequels should. It's kind of like the Godfather 2 of the 50 Shades, 50 Shades Darker. It channels their inner Kubrick by homaging Eyes Wide Shut with the masked sequence. It's very clever direction, I would say. from James Foley. No, but just jokes aside, I didn't care at all about the first film, but I actually quite enjoyed the other two more than the novels themselves, because they're just quick and straight to the point. And I was just watching. I'm like, this is my kind of trash. This is fun. I can see the moment when when Dakota Johnson and Jamie Dornan just stopped giving a shit. I can see them just going like, "We're done. Like, this like we're having a paid vacation, basically. This script is super easy to recite. Let's just get this over with." And it's enjoyable. It's weirdly enjoyable. I was shocked. I felt guilty. But this is the definition of a guilty pleasure. I was watching. I'm like, I shouldn't be enjoying it as much as I am, but here I am. Yeah. What did you think of the sequels? As bonkers as they get, with like the music as well. Like, I hate every single sex scene has to have this massive like covers of famous songs, constantly playing them throughout every single movie. They were even advertising them in the trailers. I remember that explicitly. They were kind of like, with the new single by like Rihanna, I think, or whoever's in this. I don't know.
I mean, it's
I'm
how
not
you
the
can say
music
50
guy.
Shades always is an Oscar nominated film. It's because of the
Yes,
soundtrack. So
you can. Yes, it didn't win, but got there at the Oscars. Bless them.
I was going to jump in there, but sorry, I've been handed a steak.
Enjoy your stay.
I will say this though, as I try and cut this steak. I for a lot of sorry, I'm really struggling. Jesus,
This turned into ASMR very quickly.
For a lot of
I don't. How do you cut a steak?
Really
I
badly.
don't think it's right.
Just
No
cutting the
offense.
plate.
It's like Mr. Incredible, where he cuts the plate in half. I got it though, by the way, for the visuals at home. A lot of the actual sex scenes in 50 Shades of Grey kind of reminded me of like Room tier, like bad. Like the record is skipping in the background, and bloody Tommy was always hip thrusting into someone's belly button levels of bad. Like it's so it's trying too hard to be sexy, essentially, and what it ends up doing is appealing to what the book was actively taking the piss out of. And I think that's where it gets the bad reputation from. It's that the book isn't trying to do that, but the films make it seem like it is.
Yeah.
Which is a shame.
Yeah. It makes it like super cheap 90s erotic movies. There's some garbage ones out there where it's always like the softcore music kicks in whenever they start taking their clothes off. And it's like if you thought the books were not very racy at all, just watch the movies, like nothing happens. It's kind of like those two moments here and there. I did like the flip that you mentioned, Carson. That was a fun moment in the second one. They get like the freaking, what's the name, the things you insert inside, deep inside yourself. The balls. She got the balls
Yeah,
during the
I don't know what they're
dinner.
called, but see, there's like
Beads.
they're fun
Nothing else,
scenes, Ewan.
beads.
Like
Rubber beads.
they're fun,
It is fun.
when he reaches up on the ceiling and pulls down this fucking contraption, just like that's fun.
I think of tortures.
One of my favorite scenes out of this trilogy is in the second one, where they're having dinner and it's meant to be sexy when she takes her underwear off, but it's just not. And because the following seconds she hands them over to him like it's a tax return. It's so horrid.
There you go.
And just the bit in the elevator afterwards is like just, oh, come on. Just
so smooth, Christian, so smooth. Oh, let me just casually get down on the floor and just rub my legs all over. It's like, just do it, man. No one gives a shit in this place. Everyone's blind.
I like to think that a lot of the sort of when he goes down to tie his shoes, it would have been so much better if he was wearing like Velcro. And you just hear the Velcro rip, and he just slaps it back on. He's like, "That's better," and he slowly starts to get up because that would be more convincing. I think, you think of rich men, you think of rich power people. They wear simple clothing. Elon Musk, he wears black t-shirts. Steve Jobs used to wear black turtlenecks. I get the feeling they all wore Velcro shoes as well, and I think Christian Grey should have. I don't know if it would make any difference to the quality of the movies. I just think it would be nice. I think I would like to remake the 50 Shades trilogy. Scene for scene, it'd be the exact same. Apart from every scene where you can see Christian Grey's shoes, he'd be wearing like Geox, like the shoe that breathes. Just really ugly brown Velcro shoes. That's
it
what
has
I
to be
want.
the ones that like light up once you step.
Yeah, because
has a little flasher in there.
He'd have the
colors.
He'd have the light up shoes where they've got little wheels in the bottom of them, so you can just
Heelys.
Instead of walking, you can just Heely away.
Could you imagine if he Heelied into the playroom? What a scene!
Good day, Miss Steele, and then he Heelys away,
shirtless, the Dom jeans on with the Heelys.
And then his tragic backstory can be that he was forced as a child to wear shoes with laces rather than the shit about his crackhead mother. That was just nonsense.
Yeah, they pile all of these things, like book and film, both of them just kind of like all of this trauma, all of everything is kind of like this is why he is how he is, and it's fair enough. Like it is like that. I don't want to say it isn't. Like everything that happens to us, especially during childhood, does change us completely for the rest of our lives. But it does feel more like a checklist of things. It's kind of like what would have happened that would make him like this? Oh, let's just crackhead mother just died and the father was absent, and he had this relationship with this woman, this older woman who was like a predator basically. Which is both downplayed and not in a weird way. I don't even know how to describe it. It's so weird. It's so weird. It's played by Kim. She's played by Kim Basinger in the sequel. Just kind of like, oh, poor woman. She hasn't been in anything in a long time. She needed the paycheck. Long gone are the days of her erotic movies that were actually erotic. Just.
I will say, speaking of remakes, it's all kind of come because I did not know that's why they recasted the director. And I was thinking, like, it's a little bit tragic what they did to E.L. James' baby. They really kind of butchered her. I could totally see this being remade, like as like an indie, like even just keep James the actors, keep Dornan and keep what's Johnson. Yeah, like imagine film Twitter today if A24 put out a trailer for a film for 50 Shades of Grey starring these two. Like, it's just going to be remade one day, like, to be done correctly, not like the studio system holding it down. I hope that happens. Maybe it's my fantasy, But I just want to see A24 and Neon, doesn't matter which one, pick up 50 Shades of Grey, pick up the rights, and make these. Because they deserve so much better. I think we all agree, at least the first one deserves better.
A24 would do a good job of it if they just cast Paul Dano and Daniel Radcliffe and made it a Swiss Army Man sequel. That'd be ideal.
Don't even.
Perfect. That works so well.
Who will play Christian in that version?
Ooh. I don't know, because I think Daniel Radcliffe could do with another career jump. So I think that role suits him. Maybe just have Daniel Radcliffe play every character. That'd do.
Oh,
you can keep Kim Basinger, though. She'd do fine for the sequels.
It's kind of like one of those, like, oh, just leave an actor and replace everyone else with Muppets. And it's like the 50 Shades trilogy, just keep Kim Basinger. I'd watch that.
I'm in. Like...
That's really like a short film on YouTube. I can already see it existing. It's kind of like Puppets 50 Shades. Like, yeah. 50 Muppets of Grey. I don't know. It's insane. It's so
slowly they tie Oscar the Grouch's arms to the post.
Oh god! I was going to speak there to stop this conversation, but I took a bit too big of a bite of steak, and I'm like, no, make it stop. I'm trying to chow down on hearing about Oscar the Grouch getting bonded.
But I honestly don't know if there's ever going to be something else 50 Shades related, but that's the same thing people were saying when freaking Harry Potter ended. Look where we're at now, where we're getting more video games and movies and books and nonsense about it.
The only genuine change I can see for it might be as a TV show, like as a miniseries or something. It lends itself better. That format lends itself better now, and I think we're seeing that more and more. I hate to mention them on a podcast with, actual film fans, but it lends itself more to Marvel and stuff, that they just package up 6 or 8 episodes and throw it out there and go, here it is, all at once, enjoy, consume. It would work. It would actually lend itself to what the 50 Shades trilogy does, because you can do things that the trilogy can't, essentially. You can do time skips, you can do the backstory properly, you can do things that even the book couldn't do, which is really flesh out the supporting characters, which is to provide an actual bit of tact to the back and forth, which is to provide...
Like your friend?
Yeah, which one?
Non-existent. The female friend.
The guy?
Catherine Kavanaugh. Oh. Catherine. My favorite character, oh my god. And Christian's brother, like, he has a relationship with her. There's just another movie happening in the background about the two of them falling in love. They can't keep their hands off each other. It's just odd. So weird. I don't know.
They could also do something with the side plots. There's this weird side plot that he owns agriculture in Africa in the first film, and then it just dies, and it does nothing. But they keep bringing it up in the first book/film. It's very strange.
Goes nowhere. And there's things that do go somewhere, and you wish they didn't. It's you know what? Yeah, give this to HBO, because they can push the envelope with like the sex stuff.
Yeah, they could Westworld it, make it like, I think 50 Shades of Grey, but make it in the Curb Your Enthusiasm format. Make it like primarily, improv. Add the intro sound. Make Larry David Christian Grey. Done.
Jesus. Or make it like Euphoria. Just send Larry on directing this.
I've not seen Euphoria, but I think people forget how sexy Larry David is.
Nowadays, especially.
Oh yeah, the bald head.
Like a fine wine.
He's aged like a jolly red wine.
We love you, Larry David. If you're listening, because you probably are. Yeah, but
of course he's listening.
It's the 50 Shades special, Grey. Everyone, or 50 Shades of Grey is special. Everyone is listening.
Worlds unite, discuss 50 Shades during Valentine's Day. The most romantic thing, yeah.
I think the nicest thing I can say, and I mean this is a genuine compliment to E.L. James and the books, is that, for all the books are mocked and criticised quite a lot, it is rather telling that a decade on we are still talking about them, and we are talking about them with a fondness for what they have done.
Well, that's one way to put it.
Because I mean, no, think about it. Like they've reformatted how people perceive fan fiction, where I just thought it was people pissing in the wind, but it's actually an active thing that we should worry about. Then the actual, sort of formula of turning fan fiction into something that Netflix or Amazon Prime can use, it is genuinely quite pioneering. I can't think of anything like it that came before it. I mean, the only bit of fan fiction I've ever read was when I was about 7, and someone for some reason had written a Super Smash Brothers fan fiction, and it's apparently the longest piece of literature ever written, and that's the only thing I remember about it. To this day, I cannot find it, but it is out there somewhere. But to get back on point, what E.L. James has done for sort of the fan fiction realm, which I steer clear of after I realised that a lot of it's just Sherlock porn and Doctor Who, is it's given them a bit of hope, really, that the passive hobbyist of writing can actually turn into something much bigger if you just whittle away at it for a bit. And it's a nice thought, and I think it's more power to people that can do that, because I mean, you look at something like After, which again mocked and ridiculed, but it's actually just someone sitting in their bedroom writing on a fucking beat up MacBook. It's rather inspiring in a way. It's the results are horrendous, but it is inspiring.
Kissing Booth also, absolutely.
Oh yeah.
Oh. Yeah, I'm not happy with what this brought into the world. Just all of those things, they are. I'm not a fan. I think we can blame the Book of Boba Fett on
True.
50 Shades. That's fan fiction. That's depressing. Such a depressing state of everything.
I will say WandaVision would have been better if it had hardcore BDSM halfway through. I will say I think that most people, to be very clear with everyone shitting on this, I think like y'all are fine shitting on it. I think it's beyond clear that most people have not interacted with these novels / books or movies who shit on them. So just know if you want to shit on this, that's fine, but read it and watch it first.
Well,
I know what you think.
Shout out to my university girl friends, like female friends from my course back in 2017 when these movies came out. And they were like, "Oh, it's just porn." It's kind of like, if you say that, clearly never watched porn. You don't know what you're talking about. Just you haven't seen these movies. You haven't seen anything like this. Just don't judge a book by its cover or by what other people are saying. Make up your own mind about it. And I'm happy we did this. I'm honestly happy I came up with this super weird idea to celebrate Valentine's Day like this, because I was like, you know what, I want to give it a shot because some people really like it. And I'm always the type of guy who goes in a restaurant and sees like the weirdest fucking dish, and I go, you know what? If it's in here, someone probably likes it. That might be me.
Yeah,
it doesn't always pay off, but
I live a very safe lifestyle. My Valentine's Day plans are a bottle of red and a microwave meal for one. I'm not taking risks. That's not my life. I just like to use the restaurant analogy. If I go to a restaurant, I'm ordering something I already know I like, and I'm not differing from that because it would ruin my day. 50 Shades of Grey didn't ruin my day because that's art doesn't impact me. But what what I will say is that it actually has sort of changed my perception of what can be possible with the written word. It's I've always had this conversation with friends, and it's like, you can't really write sex convincingly. There are very few writers that can. I mean, the most I can think of is maybe music. Music gets away with it because it's short little parables rather than lengthy discussions of the ins and outs of a relationship. Movies can get away with it because there's the visualization of it.
Mm-hmm.
Books have to rely solely on the interpretation of an author. So I think that's possibly the smartest thing James can do, is actually to steer away from that and just imply it rather than actively show it a lot. Because any book that does is going to weaken itself. I cannot name a writer in fiction that can actually appropriate sex as something that's not just interesting to read about, but actually makes sense. I mean, the only example I could give is like Jarvis Cocker, and he's a musician, so that doesn't really count, does it? I don't know. Maybe I've just not read enough.
But at this point, we're still on a long journey, just reading and discovering new things. But yeah, just
I can't wait till next year where you guys are just like fully just reading porn and watching porn, and you're just trying to find the good one.
That doesn't have to be next year. It can be sooner than that.
Well, it's on Letterboxd now, so it's fair game.
It is. It is. Not like I've logged anything that's on those lists. No one go check. Oh,
Yeah, the closest I've gotten is like Godzilla. Oh.
Godzilla porn.
No. It's,
If you do it, then the Clapper letterbox would have to log it, and that'd be funny. So think about that.
We've got a real market that we can corner here rather immediately.
Oh man. People like there needs to be proper reviews of those things. How do you distinguish the trash from the gems? In the adult section on Letterboxd.
And
someone has to do it.
I bring this up every time all three of us are on a podcast together. It's sort of the role of a podcaster, of a critic, of someone that is actively working as a reviewer is to sort of separate the shit from the good and to voice their earnest opinion on it, which is to say to people that might not have enough time to spend on it, is this good or bad, essentially. And it's where I envy book critics who have to read all of this shit so much. And it's, E.L. James's first book that wasn't part of the 50 Shades trilogy was just, received poorly, shall we say. It was essentially just a sickening power struggle, apparently. But I'm not surprised. She writes what she knows.
Crazy. The Mister.
That's the one. Yeah,
that's the one. It's a 2019 romance novel about an English aristocrat, Maxime Trevelyan. I think that's like the name of a villain. Is it GoldenEye? Isn't it Trevelyan, like Sean Bean from GoldenEye?
Is.
Did she just make a James Bond fan fiction?
Yeah, sure,
I think she did.
Not?
She did.
Good on her.
They're so rich with references.
They even changed the names this time.
Just Pierce Brosnan enters the scene. Oh man. Bless her. No, just like we mentioned it before. And again, I'm happy for her. I'm super happy for her. She's living her own life. She's enjoying it. She says she did a lot of experimenting with the husband for research. Just bless her. Like, she had a good time making those novels. I'm happy for her. Probably the husband is very tired about everything, but it is what it is. A worthy cause.
Guys, don't worry. The Mister, on February 25th, 2020, it was announced will become a feature film by Universal Pictures.
Well, of course.
We will be back.
Oh.
Mark your calendars down, like Valentine's Day 2023. We're coming back together for the Mister. It has to come out. I hope you're
can't. I
working
have plans that day. I'm having my microwave meal and a bottle of wine.
Oh, but yeah. Oh well, like 50 Shades. I'm just happy we've done this. I'm happy we've talked about it and shared our thoughts on it. Is it the best series of novels? No, not at all. Just no way. But it's fun. It's enjoyable. I had a good time. I had a genuine good time with the first one, and the last two, just the books are they are kind of meh, but they have moments. They have their own fun moments. Some intentional, some not so intentional in those. But the movies feel kind of similar. Just switch everything. First film, other two, just fun. It has one of the worst climax I've ever seen in any movie. Just the first one, it's horrible. The whole kidnapping scheme, the way they make it, it's outrageously bad. And then it goes into this long montage of every sexy moment from the entire trilogy. It feels like you're watching Avengers Endgame. It's kind of like you're supposed to feel all this emotion for what you've seen these characters go through over the past 3 years of your life. And you're just laughing.
Just remember,
using the same music.
The film trilogy made 1.3 billion at the box office. That is 28 million behind all of the Alien films, which is in of itself a remarkable achievement. That's for someone writing Twilight fan fiction to get to $1 billion trilogy of films. It's like that's pretty good. That's a pretty good innings. It's not bad. I imagine the 50 Shades from Grey's perspective will inevitably come out. Well,
I can see that as a TV show, actually.
Oh, yeah. With Larry David as Christian Grey.
And as Anastasia Steele.
That'd be pretty good. That would be good.
It's like being John Malkovich, or it's like being Christian Grey.
There we go. Cast John Malkovich as Christian Grey.
Oh, jeez.
Fantastic.
Oh, this has been put into the world now.
It has. It's out there. Yeah.
Oh, man.
Is this like a Patreon special that people have to pay to listen to? Or can everybody listen to this?
Everyone's listening to this.
Oh, blimey.
All the lovely people.
It's been quite an eventful episode, I'd say, from my impromptu ASMR to my desire and lust for Larry David. You know, it's a win-win for all audiences.
Yeah, well, that's a kink I'm not gonna bash. Anyway. We accept all kinks in here, even Larry David specific ones.
Larry David specific kinks. I think I've had a book idea.
You could genuinely get it sold to Netflix. I feel
I could.
You could do this
if they take
it, yeah.
maybe HBO
because
would
E.L.
take
James
it.
broke down the door for you.
She was Jack Torrance in The Shining, cracking through that door with a fire axe, and I'm just sprinting on in behind her like a little cockroach, thinking I can do it as well, and I could, and I will. I'll have a first draft done tomorrow. What a Valentine's Day it's going to be.
A long night of writing. Anyway, final thoughts. Anyone has anything more to add?
I love these. What? Read these. I'm a stan. I love these. Other than the third one, which is kind of shitty. Like, I'm in. You know, I love these.
Is there a name for like the fans of? Are they like the shadies?
The Graysters or something? I don't know.
The inner goddesses. I'm an inner goddess as well. Oh man, that's what's missing from the book, from the movies. The inner goddess.
Fandom. You really need a good fan. There's some good costumes you could pull out at Comic-Con for this.
Oh, there's a
make the braids super long braids.
Yeah.
There's a wiki page for 50 Shades. Excellent.
The mask. Is there a wiki 50 Shades wiki? Oh no.
There is like a. Oh, I've clicked on.
I've
clicked on. I clicked on the page for the Christian Grey perspective book, and it just said there is currently no text in this page. It's like, right, I'm forever left mysterious.
The fans are dead. No one's read.
Can I just read a quote from E.L. James that I've just found?
Go for it.
Christian Grey is a complex character, and readers have always been fascinated by his desires and motivations and his troubled past. I would like to take issue with that whole statement. I just don't think to do. Because for fine enough, the first book was parody. But now she has had to push herself into believing that her work was truly meant to read that way.
I mean, who can blame her, though, with that kind of paycheck? I would, too.
Oh,
well, yeah.
Like, nothing but respect for my queen, E.L. James.
I've done a lot worse for a lot less, let me tell you. And it's like, if I was told that by my agent, okay, look, you wrote a very shit book, but people like it, would you be fine with lying to people about the quality of Christian Grey? Absolutely, of course, yes. My God, I'd do it for like 50 quid, let alone 50 billion. You know?
Yeah. She understands the value of contracts as well, as we've seen in the first book.
That scene still makes me cringe when like they're at the table opposite each other and like the red background.
Yeah,
and it's
probably my favorite scene from the entire trilogy.
Really,
it's so good.
Great lighting, great direction.
It's not
the timing when she says, "What is a butt plug?" and then the guys come in with the food.
Yeah.
Great.
She's like, you were Googling submissive like 2 minutes ago. You didn't Google butt plug?
It's also like the name, to be fair, really kind of gives you your answer. It's not
that hard.
Not that hard,
so
that one.
She's so innocent, just so cute. Just look at her. Oh.
My favorite thing was in book 3, or film 3, number 3, when she said, "Why do you braid my hair like this?" I was like, what? We've been watching for 3 books or movies or whatever that he grabs your hair. Like, what do you mean? Why does he do this? Even I know that. Like, That was funny.
It's so weird. Like the whole character is just she's naive, but then occasionally she's super smart and like she's nasty, but then she's just dumb. So it makes no sense. It's not a real character. None of these are real characters. And that's ultimately how I felt like reading it. And kind of like just like, take it as a fantasy. Take it as a fantasy. People are going to do some things thinking about these books afterwards, and that's fine.
Oh, don't
This
say
is all it's
that.
about. This is all what it's about. Just take it for what it is. Just don't think about it too much, and it's fine. Ultimately,
It is interesting engaging in a piece of media that people have orgasm to. No, I hope that's not too crude for your show. I really don't know the standards here.
oh well,
But
go
like
for it.
the fact that like 60-year-old white women have done it to this book, it's very interesting. Just
I mean, we talked
being
about
aware of
Jane
that.
Eyre in this in here, so you know.
That's fair.
Please, I'm trying to eat chips. No, it is odd, and it's the, you know, who knows what films have been on in the background while people do things, but 50 Shades of Grey has a percentile much larger than any other media, whether that's films or music or opera.
It's kind of depressing in a way.
Yeah.
It's like they're also very short, all those scenes, so you know it's not even that much engagement you can have.
It says a lot about the fans of the films.
It's very young fans. I think that's probably also the thing because like the books take a lot of effort. It's kind of like but you have the movies, like it's easier for like teenagers. I remember like classmates because 2015 the first one came out. I was starting the last year of high school. So, you know, people could go to watch this movie. They were like 14 plus, so everyone could go watch them in high schools, and everyone did, kind of. Except me. But, yeah. I mean, that's low standards as well. Like, you know, there's finer, better, more exciting films you can find out there. I would even recommend a few, not that I have a list or anything. I should make it, actually. Look at best erotic films. I think of like 365 days. Oh my god! Has any of you seen it? Actually,
Yeah, not good. The
That's like
sequel
the
comes
first
out
version.
this year.
Oh,
They're doing a sequel. What
Oh,
was there a
sequel.
leap year or something?
I think they're doing a trilogy. Honestly, I think this is just part 2 of 3.
Why?
I'll sign you up for the ClapperCast on it. Don't worry.
This is news to me. That's just another thing I've got to review. It's like, Carson, you know my track record for reviews for Clapper are often stuff like the Princess Diana musical, and like, I don't watch quality anymore. My life is a constant cycle of suffering through shit.
It's
So
Kino.
The guy behind the Princess Diana film, I've had lunch with, or like musical, the actual musical itself, I had lunch with. I have like ins on the theater world for some reason, and I felt so bad. I was like so excited, like, oh, it's my friend, like I can't wait to watch this, and I was like, oh boy,
yeah.
Oh no, wait, no.
You give it a third chance. You know, that's what matters. Ultimately, I guess. But yeah, people, like, if you want erotic movies, just go watch something like Basic Instinct. Go watch your Lolitas. Go watch In the Cut.
Go watch Tampopo. Go like make homemade ramen one day.
Yes.
That's what I did. I made homemade ramen for like 16 hours one day, and I watched Tampopo. It was amazing.
Tampopo, like when people say food porn, that movie is legit food porn.
He puts like live shrimp up there. Like, what an exciting experience!
Movie. It's hot. So just play the hot movie.
The Dreamers, that's a good one.
The Dreamers, Stranger by the Lake, Bound. Like, there's a whole bunch of actual good cinema that's erotic, and you can push it further if you want to go to your Tinto Brass and more explicit films like that in the realm of the senses we've mentioned. Just they are out there. If you look for them, they're out there. But just 50 Shades. I think it's such a cultural milestone that you have to watch it once in your lifetime or read it. I know many people who've only read the first book and just like you, and they're like, no, this is not worth it.
It's just... I do think it's worth reading 50 Shades of Grey, at least the first one, because it is a cultural milestone. It is... Look, I think it redefines what we consider as a cultural classic, and I'm reminded of what Carson said at the start of the podcast. I do think 50 Shades of Grey, as much as I didn't enjoy it, it is a cultural classic because of the impact it's had on culture. it's it's not the quality of William Shakespeare or Bram Stoker or like Philip K. Dick, but it is of the same quantity. It's of the same area as that writing. It has a monumental impact on writing, and for good or bad, that is something that needs to be appreciated and actually experienced. It's why people watch and remember films like Food Fight or Postal. It's because they're so bad that, or rather, I mean, Postal.
People
really
remember
good.
Postal.
I remember Postal. It's rent free in my mind. But stuff like Food Fight or The Room, people remember it because it's so bad. But just because something's bad doesn't mean it's had cultural impact. It's you can make a bad bit of art that has a lot of impact. It's
the MCU.
Yeah. I'd question the impact it's had on sound minds and non-smooth brains, but I suppose in a way, it has impacted. I mean, look at the events of culture. It's the MCU's the 21st century assassination of JFK. It's like that's the level we're talking about.
I think
it's
this
a
is
cultural assassination.
I think this is the sign we've reached.
We've reached our limit, yeah. But no, I genuinely, 50 Shades of Grey is worth reading, even if I didn't enjoy it.
Yeah. Just and honestly, like it says a lot that if you go like Letterboxd, IMDb, the movies have low ratings, like very low ratings, almost too low. It feels like, I mean, it's more like a joke. I can see a lot of like half stars were very jokey, but fair enough. Like it's fun. People had fun with it even when they hated it. Then I went to Goodreads to read the book reviews. They have high ratings, which says a lot about the audience and type of people that are on Goodreads and actually rate things because they have like 3 point. How big? Like, do you remember you and the ratings that they have? It's like fairly high. It's like 50 Shades. The first one has 3.66. 50 Shades Darker 3.84. Same things for Freed.
Is this on Goodreads?
On Goodreads, yeah. Darker,
yeah.
Like Grey, just Grey, has a 3.81 and Darker is a 4.12. Like if you had these ratings on the movie, just imagine that. Imagine having 50 Shades of Grey with like a 4.1, Letterboxd top 250.
Do you think a lot of it's because as people sort of dwindle off, like, if you read a book like first in a series, you're not going to enjoy it. If you're 8 books in, the average is going to go up because the people who've stuck around to read it are essentially the only people reading it now.
I completely agree. I think that's why even like festival movies and stuff, whenever they come out in a very small capacity, they always have like the highest freaking ratings. And when real people watch them, it's kind of like, oh, they just drop.
I mean, it's like how the new Jackass has like a 93%, I think, on Rotten Tomatoes right now, or something crazy like that. It's just because, like, at this point, right? If you don't like these, I don't know why you would read 50 Shades Freed, but
yeah, that's on you. Like, if you're actually kind of like, I mean, if you like hate reading, just fair enough. But it's easier to, like you said, it's easier to just sit down and passively accept the movies. It's harder to actually move the pages around, going like, Jesus, there's like 700 more pages to these books. Like I got the omnibus, well, digitally. It's long. It's long. It's just as long as like a normal Stephen King book, but still, it's fairly long.
I will say, just because you mentioned Goodreads, it has nothing to do with this conversation, but I fucking hate the user base on Goodreads. It's almost as bad as Letterboxd.
Oh.
It's not as bad as Letterboxd. I think Letterboxd is a hive of wasps that if you try and kick, you're going to be stung to death. Goodreads is more like, getting trapped in an oil slick.
I like that, like a popular review on Goodreads, like 10 likes.
It's like, and like if you go to any like the really big popular books on Goodreads, it's like every other sentence there's like a GIF splitting a paragraph.
Yes.
Or like just some boomer quote, and it's like, this is what these people do.
Yeah. And I love it that there's always, like, if it's a classic book, 100%, if not the first one, it's the second review, that is a 1-star, here's why this book actually fucking sucks and everyone else is wrong. And this does not deserve to be a classic. But it's not on 50 Shades. It's all very positive reviews in the top ranked. So yeah, I think this is it. Just let's close the show as always because it's just fun. Like favorite character, book and film of like the entire trilogy. Just do you guys have any favorite character that just stands out to you in this trilogy? Carson, how about you? Go first.
I mean, this might be the worst book you can ask because there's not really any characters. Like,
Which characters?
I guess Anastasia, but like, I don't think between after her and Christian, there's much it left over for this question, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm dreading Ewan's answer.
I don't know. It's Carson kind of just stole what I was going to say there. He's right. There are no characters in this.
You could
They're
say
just,
her inner goddess.
Yes.
I refuse to utter those three words in that order. That will not happen. I
Shame.
like I the look. You know you've made something culturally acceptable when it's parodied in a scary movie. So that alone, Scary Movie 5 has cemented 50 Shades' legacy.
When there's 50 Shades of Black.
Yes. Oh my god. There is
Which is
also
like this, the Italian translation of the second book. I don't even remember. It's like the Italian translation of 50 Shades of Black is something super disgusting.
It's didn't it, I mean it made a box office profit and has Marlon Wayans in it, so it can't be too bad. But I mean, favorite character for the book and the film, it's like it's so hard to morally justify anything they do, and it's so hard to connect with anything they do because they're just blank slates. It's like, oh, I don't even know what she does. She works at Christian Gray's company by the end of it.
Studying English literature.
Mm-hmm.
And he answers us like, "Oh, what author caught your attention? This was like Jane Austen or Bronte or the other guy." It's like it shows that he has culture as well. He's not just a pretty face or a rich man. He's a man of culture and taste.
But he's not. He's not a man of culture. He's just a bit of a knob. He's just.
You can pay for culture.
You can. Marvel do. But no, I think it's really hard to pick a character when they're all sort of just the same. They're sort of the same model. They all represent the same thing, and if they don't represent the same thing, then they represent nothing at all, like some of the supporting characters. For the films, I suppose Kim Basinger, just for the sole reason that she showed up to these things under the implication that she'd be in something of quality.
Oh, man.
Bless her heart. Bless her heart.
It's like Faye Dunaway in the Bye Bye Man. Like, why? Just why are you here? That's for me. I have to say, like the book's 100% the inner goddess because every time it just came up, I just laughed every time. Just yes. And for the films, I'll pick Christian Grey for the last two movies because at least Jamie Dornan has a beard, and it just looks more natural on him. Just don't shave it, man. Never force this man to shave his beard ever again, please. Just a crime. Anyway, if anyone's interested to read 50 Shades, you can just your local library 100% has it. Wherever you're living in the world, they have it. No worries about that.
They're on sale at Amazon though. I would not get a shared public copy of this book. Like,
yeah, don't buy pre-owned.
The box set's on sale. Just do that.
Just get the box set, get the digital version like I did. Money well spent. And for the movies, you don't even have to spend money. If you have a Netflix subscription, I want to say it's worldwide. Like they've released all of them. I did watch, however, the unrated cuts. It's just kind of like the same thing, only longer. It's not racier. There's no more. I don't even know what they added. I went to movie censorship just to look what the differences are. Couldn't tell. Honestly, couldn't tell. So, yeah, this is it. Definitely. I think this is the conclusion. Just the movies are kind of more fun in a weird way in the last two parts. The books are enjoyable early on. Like the first one and the second one are very cute. So that's one way to describe them. Cute. They're very cute, just with the slapping and the tapping the ass with the things, whatever. Anyway, yes, go read at least 50 Shades of Grey because it's worth it. It's a good read. Like, you changed the Yuan to his core, so that says a lot.
Yeah, I suppose. I can't do anything about that.
We cannot go back now. Like, we've read this.
That's too late. It's a matter of public record.
It is. It is. So
it's terrifying.
Why don't we go around the table and say where all the lovely listeners can find us? So, Carson, where can everyone find you?
You can find my tweets on the Inner Goddess and all my thoughts on everything 50 Shades on Twitter at @pp_movie reviews. Letterboxd Carson Timar, listener ClapperCast every single Wednesday when we talk about the newest releases. Just find us on Twitter at ClapperPodcast and find all the links from there.
Yeah, and right now you're doing the whole, like, you're going deep into the Oscars, which are coming next month. So there's, like, if you want the documentary feature lineup, possible lineup, the animated movies, like, everything's on there. So definitely give it a listen.
We're starting 2 new series. We're doing the Road to Oscars, where we're talking about some great Oscar films in the past, Oscar-winning films in the past. Okay. And then we're cutting that every week with Road to WrestleMania, because Alina loves wrestling. So we're watching a wrestling-related film with a wrestling match, and then, I guess, talking about them. Alina really wanted this, and me and Paul have to suffer, so join us for that.
Super fun, super fun. How about you, Ewan? This is your favorite part. You love it. You love it. You love it to run.
I hate it because I can't remember. My memory is pickled. You can get me on Twitter and Letterboxd at Ewan Gleadow, EWANGLEADOW. My postman still, after 3 years of living here, cannot spell my name. You can find my work on Clapper, Cult Following, Geek Show, Daily Star, Newcastle World, Spark Sunderland, Northern Lights. Narc Magazine. There we go. That'll do. Any volume as well. I interviewed a comedian that barely anybody's heard of, but he's quite popular in my area.
Yeah, lovely interview.
Like, lovely. He's a nice guy, which was terrifying because, I was a bit starstruck. I'd known of him since I was about 10. And now I'm the withered, elderly age of 22. It's all downhill from here.
Half a lifetime later.
That's literally half a lifetime.
Time moves quickly. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at MickeyBrown97, and there you can find my linktree/enjoy the movies, where you can find links to everything that I do. Also, be sure to check out the Uncut Gems podcast, where every Friday, me and the good Jakub Flash talk about movies that nobody else wants to talk about. And like this next week, I don't know what we're talking. I think by the time this recording is out, we have talked with Carson as well about the Mamma Mia sequel and Mamma Mia the original, like the 2 Mamma Mias. And next week we have Cats. So it's a bonkers, like, double, triple bill of movies to watch, and I'm so looking forward to it.
If you thought my takes on 50 Shades were bad, just wait till we get to Cats, because one of my favorite films of all time.
I'm excited. I'm super excited. And yeah, you can follow the show on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. On Twitter, it's Death Adaptation. On Instagram and TikTok, it's Death By Adaptation Pod. You can find some reels, some fun stuff. And yeah, stay tuned, because in 2 weeks' time, it's just me and you, and again, talking about Catch 22, the Joseph Heller novel, classic war satire, which is gonna be a fun conversation. Not like we recorded it already.
No, we would never. We always do things just a couple days before.
Yeah. This is borderline live coming your way. Anyway, thank you all so much for listening. We hope you had a good time, and we wish you have a fabulous rest of the day. Bye-bye.